Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited about what we're tasting. We will be going through 3 wines and talking and tasting about them from the Antinori family. For those of you who submitted questions beforehand, thank you. We really love your participation. We're going to incorporate a lot of those in our conversation today, but we will also try to get to a few of them at the end. If you purchase wines to taste along with us, great, fantastic. Please get those open. Grab some glassware, some snacks. We are going to be tasting all 3 wines today, but I realize that might not be something you want to open all at once. So note that this video will live on the Wine.com YouTube channel. So you can come back, open the other wines, and just taste along with us again anytime that is convenient for you. Also, while we're going to be talking through the tasting notes as we taste through these 3 wines today, if you want more information, feel free to go and look them up on Wine.com as well. I mean, these wine pages that we have are just chock full of information. You can find the tasting notes and the critic reviews and maps and stories, how the wine is made. So if you really want to dive deep into these wines, please go check that out on Wine.com so you can get all the information you really want. Okay, the wines we are tasting today in order are the Haras de Pirque Sauvignon Blanc from Chile, the Via Antinori Chianti Classico Riserva from Tuscany, and the Antica Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. And now let us introduce our guests. Joining us today from Italy, and quite late at night, thank you, we're thrilled to have Alessia Antinori, 26th generation of the Antinori family and vice president of the company. Welcome, Alessia.
Good afternoon, Gwendolyn.
Yes, good afternoon, yes, and good evening or morning to you. And we also have Renzo Cotarella, who is Chief Enologist and CEO, and he's been with the Antinori for decades, so it's kind of, part of the family, right, Renzo?
Ciao, Gwendolina.
Yeah, ciao, how are you? Yes.
I'm fine.
Good, thank you so much
Still awake.
Pardon? That was a little
Still
late.
awake.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for being here. I want to start with a little bit of history, just because if any wine family has history, it's the Antinoris. Alessia, you are 26th generation of this legendary winemaking family who's been making wine for 600 plus years now. Can you tell us just a little bit about the history and the legacy and what that means to you?
Absolutely. So I'm part with my other 2 sisters of the 26th generation. And it all started in Florence in Tuscany, in Italy, many years ago. And we go back to 1385 when one of our ancestors, Giovanni di Piero Antinori, started the wine guild, the Arte dei Vinatieri in Florence. And at the time, we were more merchants of wine, because who was really producing the wines were the priests in the countryside close to Florence in the Chianti Classico. I always say that they were producing the wines, maybe sometimes drinking a little bit of wine too, and whatever remained, we tried to sell it in the city of Florence. And so for a few generations, we were more focusing on that. And then, especially in the last 3-4 generations, we were obviously more focusing on also on the production. And this for us was extremely important. And I would say that especially the generation of my great-grandfather, my grandfather during the World Wars too, and I would say also my fathers especially, were extremely important. And I would like to focus on the one of my father, because he has really signed the renaissance of Italian high-quality red wines, especially in the production of the Chianti Classico, because he has always been focusing on the high quality, and also sometimes going against the laws in some wines that we have been producing, especially, also starting the category of the Super Tuscans. And for that reason, he really signed that renaissance. And I think this was important for ourselves, but especially for the image of Italian high-quality red wines in Italy and abroad. And also, Antinori is known to be extremely traditional because of the 600 years and more of involvement in the business, but also very innovative. And for us, experimentation and innovation are extremely important. The characteristics of being curious and experimenting in Tuscany, obviously in the Chianti Classico, but also trying to see what is happening also outside our territory. And so for that reason, we have been also very curious of what was happening also abroad. And for that reason that we started also some very interesting joint ventures and collaborations also outside our territory.
Yeah, and Renzo, I mean, you were kind of part of this generation from her father and on to her generation. How have you seen it grow in these past couple of decades or few decades? Just the Antinori family as itself.
We did a lot in the last, let's say, 20 or 30 years. I started 40 years ago with Piero, so many years ago. We did a lot in the last 20 years, 30 years, and we practically became a producer. That for us really very important to be able to sell the wine coming from our grapes in terms of style, but also in terms of continuity. And also in terms of having a product, we know exactly how it is made, where it comes from. It's a matter of making wine, knowing exactly how you can grow grapes to produce a certain type of style. So we, the family invested a lot. And now we are very proud about the place we have. We have wonderful vineyard, a wonderful place. And we continue to work in order to improve our quality, and there is still a lot to do. But I think we are on the right track after 635 years.
Good start. So let's taste through these wines that are from both your classic Tuscan property as well as two places you've invested in around the world. The first wine, we're going to take a look at your property in Chile, the Haras de Pirque. So this winery is in the Maipo region of Chile, and it's an equestrian-themed, state-of-the-art winery here in the Maipo Valley, and it's just kind of fascinating because it's shaped like a horseshoe, which is just stunning, and that comes from that equestrian theme. And there are these vineyards. It's just kind of nestled in the vineyards. It's really just so beautiful to look at. There are still some horses that surround it as well. Alessia, could you tell us a bit about this winery and why Antinori chose to invest in Chile?
So going back to what I was saying before, the curiosity and also the sharing of experiences that go beyond what we have been doing also in the Chianti Classico and in other properties in Italy has been always very important, and it's part of our DNA. So it happened in 2002 that my father and Renzo traveled to South America and to Chile to see some properties there because we were very interested in what the country was doing. And we traveled a lot. It was a very tiring trip. I remember very well. It was a few years ago, and it was one of my first experiences that I did with them traveling. And I remember it as very intense, but also very interesting. And we went in many.
Anymore. That was the last one.
Yes, exactly. No, it wasn't the last one. One of the first ones. Yeah. And we went to various wine areas of Chile, and one of the last ones was going back to Santiago, so the Maipo area, and we all fell in love with this property, which was beautiful because it's under the Andes. It's quite close to the city of Santiago, and the land is incredible. And also, as you were mentioning, we shared with the Mate family, the family that we partnered at the time, the passion of horse breeding and training, because not really myself, my mother, my other two sisters are really passionate about it. So, for us, this was also another link which made us favorable of choosing this beautiful winery. And since then, since at this point, 2002, we have been always focusing on this beautiful property.
Yeah, and you make it's just a lovely lineup, and I love the artistry on the labels as well. But let's go ahead and taste this wine. This is a Sauvignon Blanc, actually from the Leda Valley, so over in the coastal area, which is classic for creating, unique Chilean Sauvignon Blancs. Renzo, can you tell us a little bit about what we should expect in this wine and how it reflects the Chilean terroir as we taste through?
It is a typical Chilean Sauvignon Blanc coming from, let's say, a cold region. Lleida is a cold region very close to the Pacific Ocean. Very rarely temperature goes over 25 degrees centigrades. And also during the night, there is a very good gap between day and night about temperature. So, I mean, Sauvignon Blanc grows very well there and maintaining a sort of a green character, which is typical of Sauvignon Blanc. So it's more oriented to, let's say, green leaves than peaches or tropical taste. So it's really typical, very precise, vertical, quite acidic, but still very drinkable. I mean, it's nice. It's not sweet, of course, it's dry, but it is really, it has a wonderful drinkability. It's easy to drink, but easy to recognize as well. So you recognize immediately it comes from Chile. Also because the region is really very particular, very peculiar. We are very close to the ocean, at least a couple of miles. Wonderful area, quite close, but I mean, with the advantage of having the breeze coming from the ocean, which is really, really, really very good for this kind of variety. So I think this is one of the best areas in the world, together with other, of course. I don't want to, I mean, not to consider other, which are very good, but I mean, in terms of producing a typical green character of Sauvignon Blanc, I think Lleida is really unique.
It is, and this has that exact thing that I love in the Chilean Sauvignon Blancs, which is that the marriage of that really ripe citrus with the herbaceous, we call it pyrazines here, but that yes, green herbaceous yes. With the citrus, and then the refreshing acidity that just, it's
exactly. It's refreshing without being too pungent.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the wine is really, really very drinkable.
Yes, it's very drinkable. It's very balanced. And what would you recommend for? I would have this with ceviche. Do you have any food recommendations that you would pair that with?
Oyster is the best. But the seafood is okay, but also as an aperitif. Because the drinkability. I mean, sometimes you drink the wine as it is. I mean, you don't need to.
To me, that is a pairing for a very hot summer day. Just drink that.
Even during the night is very good, I must say.
Yeah, at 1 a.m. It's very good. It's true. Yeah, it's a very classic Chilean Sauvignon Blanc. All right, we're going to head back over to Tuscany, the heart and home of Antinori, and not just Tuscany, but the heart and home of Tuscany, which is Chianti Classico. So the Antinori family was actually integral in creating Chianti Classico as it is today. Alessia, how have you seen this region change, at least in this past generation, yours and your father's?
As Renzo was mentioning, it has been a very important generation because we have focused more and more in the last years on, on the vineyard, on the terroir, which is, the essence, because the wine comes from the grapes and from the nature. So this for us has been extremely important. And the Chianti Classico is our heart, our soul. We come from there. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's for us, it's really part of our most important of the family. So Sangiovese, which is, the main grape variety of the Chianti Classico, is a grape variety that is very challenging. So we have done a lot of experimentation on that too, and this has been, also a part of this last generation on our focus on that, and focusing on the 3 estates in the Chianti Classico that we own: Badia Passignano, Peppoli, and Tignanello, which are all situated in the Tavernelle Valdipesa area. But then in the last 2-3 years, since we really want to show the different expression of the Sangiovese, we went a little bit outside our area from where we come from, and we went to the Gaiola area, for example, and where we purchased a beautiful property there, because we want to really show, and that's also a little bit part of the future. Also, what we will have to do as a 26th generation with my sisters is really to focus on showing the different expressions of Sangiovese and how, also if they're not so distant from each other, can produce wines that are very different. And exactly from that property of Gaiola, we are producing the Chianti Classico that we are tasting, and exactly this one. And from there, we are producing it, and also we are vinifying it in our new winery that we have built a few years ago. And I think it's very important to talk about the new winery too, because as my father mentioned, it has been the most important project in the last 26 generations, and he really hopes that it will last another 26 generations possibly, because it has been a very important project for us, for time and also financially. But we think that this it had to be done, and I hope that you will all come to visit it, because it's a very special place. It's a special place to work in it, and a special place to visit, which I think it's also very important nowadays, because we wanted to work in the, also all our colleagues to work in the countryside, in the vineyard all together. And this happens in this winery. So the facade of the winery could have been also very monumental, but in a way, it's there are two cuts on the hills, so it's all underground, and the facade of it is the most beautiful thing that we own, which is the landscape, the territory of the Chianti Classico. So we thought, especially my father thought, that this had to be the facade of this beautiful wine. The winery is for our first time, because it wasn't like that in the past. It's open to the public 7 days per week, when things will be a little bit better, we hope soon. And we have a restaurant, we have a wine shop, and also a small in a way, we don't call it a museum, but a project where we show all the art that we have collected throughout the years, from the Renaissance to nowadays. And I think that wine and art can be related together very well, because wine is art too.
Very true. And I had the privilege of visiting the winery. Yes.
We had lunch together there with you and Michael and Piero Antinori.
Yes. And yes, so as Renzo said, I had the privilege of dining with you, Renzo, as well as Piero, about 18 months ago. And the winery is stunning, because it's part of the hill. I mean, it's just part of the land. It's just nestled in there, but then you come in and there's just, and it's modern, but I just think it really pulls together that shows how much that Antinori kind of marries tradition with innovation, as you were saying earlier. And that winery really, I think, showcases that. And it's a destination. You can spend a whole day there. If you are in that region, you have one winery to visit. Not just because y'all are here, I would really say this is the one to go to. So,
we have the privilege to have the office there.
Yeah, it is a destination, and well-deserved after 600 plus years, right? So we're going to taste the Via Antinori Chianti Classico, but as you were saying, Alessia, this is not the only Chianti Classico. Renzo, how many Chianti Classicos does Antinori produce? I know there's the Badia.
We produce now of Pepoli, Badia Passignano, Marchese Antinori, and Villa Antinori. But as Alessia was saying, Chianti Classico is really a special territory, and Sangiovese is really a special variety that really express itself in a different way depending on the place where the Sangiovese grows in a certain sense. So the idea, we have an idea of producing even more in the future in order to make clear the difference between place and place. We need to work, of course. We need to understand better. As Alessia was saying, we just bought some area in the last 3 or 4 years around in the Chianti Classico where we were not born, which means Gaiola and Castellina. But we need to understand really the place. But I'm sure in the future we can have another two in a certain sense, another two in order to really make clear what Sangiovese is and how it is able to express in different places. Of course, when we talk about Chianti Classico, we need to talk also about vintages, because there is a lot of variability, vintage by vintage. We had 2014 that was challenging, 15 was great, 16 unique, I think is one of the best vintage ever. 16, the one
that's what's in our glass. So
yes.
Yes.
17, which was maybe a little bit too dry, but good, intense. 18, elegant, refined, as 19. So 16 in now, I think is really a wonderful expression of Chianti Classico because it has this touch of acidity and this sense of vibrancy that makes the wine really unique. It is not a wine too rich as Sangiovese is. Sangiovese is not a rich wine, but it's really intense, vertical, and again, it has this kind of vibrancy that makes the wine really unique. We, probably because we were born there, we love Chianti Classico, but you know.
Well, I love it too, but and so the intended style for this wine, like you said, the 16 vintage, unique. So you're saying there's a little bit more the brightness of acidity there to balance out. You know, I'm getting all that red cherry, and I love the kind of, I think the term I learned a while back was dusty tannins, which is kind of
but
a way to describe the actual structure, because it's not too heavy and it's not too drying, but there's kind of like a dusting of tannins. And
you know what I say when I talk about Chianti Classico is more a red wine than a black wine.
Yes.
In terms of taste, in terms of being fresh, in terms of being, again, drinkable, attractive. You know, it's really a wonderful wine, generally speaking, that pairs very well with food. It's perfect with food. But at 16 is maybe one of the most refined vintage we had in the last 10 years.
It's very elegant. It's just it's a very elegant wine. It kind of pulls together the herbal earth components with the red fruit, and then and I always, it's a food wine, but you think of Italy and you think of all these tomato-based dishes which has good acidity, and then you've got these wines with good acidity that just makes that wonderful pairing.
We are accustomed to drink wine with food.
Yeah,
but this wine, I think, is a little bit more than elegant. I think it has a grace of a wine. It's very well balanced. Tannins are there, but they are really inside the perimeter of the wine. I think it's a very good expression of Chianti Classico.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful price, and it could just land on your dinner table very well. One thing I wanted to ask too, Alessia, I know that you worked Tignanello quite a few vintages, maybe all of them. But so Tignanello is also made in Chianti Classico, but it's not Chianti Classico. And I know a lot of our viewers are big fans. So Renzo or Alessia, if one of you wanted to kind of speak to how this might compare to what you're doing with Tignanello and Chianti.
So I have to say one thing, that if you ask us three sisters separately, which is our favorite wine at home, the answer is, for all of us, it's always Tignanello. Because I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's very important to say that it's really a wine that represents innovation and also history and tradition. And it has been a wine, as I was mentioning, that signed the renaissance of Italian high-quality red wines. It was a turning point from, Italy was known to be more quantity-oriented after the Second World War. Instead, after that, my father went against really many laws at the time he declassified the wine, but he wanted to make it more special and certainly more driven to high quality. And so going towards it in that direction, he created the category of Super Tuscans, especially as Super Tuscans produced in the Chianti Classico. So this for us was very important. And I think that it was a moment also that we were always, and we will still obviously focus on the Chianti Classico, but that moment was very particular in the years to follow to start that category of the Chianti Classicos. And nowadays, as Renzo was mentioning, we are going also back to the Chianti Classico because we feel that it's extremely important and it's part of our DNA. And also we're focusing on the Sangiovese because also the Sangiovese is 80% of the Tignanello it's Sangiovese. So, it's really part of our family.
Yeah, that's beautiful. This is a beautiful wine. I think it just kind of speaks so well to the vintage and the sense of place that we love so much. So we're going to head over to California now, over to Antica. So Antica is located in the Atlas Peak region of Napa Valley, this beautiful mountainous area. And the vineyards here are located right there on the fog line. As you can see here, it's just ideal for grape growing here on the hills. The winery is just a beautiful place and perfect for making this kind of Cabernet Sauvignon with such great structure and elegance to it. So Alessia, what led your family to California, to especially the Napa Valley?
I think for my father, it was really love at first sight, because when he went there at the end of the 70s, he really fell in love with the property, with obviously Napa Valley, and with the property of Antica, because that property is extremely special. It's in a different location, that not in the valley, but on the hillside. It's a little bit isolated. You have those views which you've seen from the photos of the fog in the morning. And also we have built a little house there that has the view on the Napa Valley, but most of the time also on the Bay of San Francisco. And it's unique, it's really unique. And my father, and also myself, and also the rest of the family when we can, but especially him, he spends a lot of time there because it's one of his favorite places. And I believe because of that, it's one of our most beautiful properties that we own. As I was mentioning at the beginning, it's, for us, it's been very important, especially if you think that my father in the late 70s went from Italy to Napa Valley, believed in that area, and started to, invest in that area because he believed in it. And nowadays, it's as I mentioned, it was one of our most beautiful, our most beautiful properties, and we have always been focused on the indigenous grape varieties, which obviously are Chardonnay and Cabernet there. It's mountain fruit because it's on the hillside, so it's a little bit different style of a Napa Valley wine. But I also think, and Renzo will mention it also later, that what makes this wine a little bit different is that it's a blend of old world and new world. Old world because obviously we bring our part to it, which is, I hope, very important. Gives that finesse and that elegance. And the new world because it gives the power and the fruit to the wine. And the blend together produces a wine that is has a lot of personality. And what we are looking in all our wines, from the Italian wines to our experiences outside our country, is to produce wines that have personality, backbone, and obviously are always driven to produce a high quality wine.
Yeah, and I love also the name, which kind of takes Antinori and California, so Antica. I've always enjoyed that idea. I think that perfectly kind of tells you you're taking your expertise and tradition with where you are to show that sense of place. So Renzo, I know you are super hands-on in this wine region, well, every wine region, but what are some of the differences you found here in California making Antica?
But it is always challenging and exciting to try to produce something different than the wine you produce regularly, as we do in Italy. So first of all, as Alessia was saying, this is really a beautiful estate. Of course, I have my heart in Umbria, Castello della Sala, and also Tignanello. But this is one of the estate I love most. I mean, really, I take all the occasion to go there, even sometimes too much or too often. It's really a wonderful estate, also because it has a character. It has a character because the place has a character because the soil, and as Alessia was saying, is able to produce wine that are in the middle. They have, of course, we are in California, we are in Napa Valley, even if we are on the mountain, because we are talking about 1,500 feet above the sea level, which is quite unusual, or at least it used to be quite unusual for California, for Napa Valley. And so the characteristics of the grapes are completely different. They keep this sort of vibrancy again, which remember to us, in a certain sense, our Chianti hills and our Chianti character. But together, as Alessia was saying, with the Napa Valley intensity, the Napa Valley power. So it's a good balance. Of course, we need to do a lot there. We need to work more. We need to work more. We need to know more. I mean, we are managing this estate since 2008, 2009. Even if, I mean, we always were involved in making wine there. So we were able to, let's say, to acquire experience. But there is still a lot to do also because, I mean, with the climate changing, with the palate changing, I mean, we need to readdress the style, I don't say every year, but I mean, constantly. We are on the right track there again. We were able to build a small winery with small tanks where we were able to vinify grapes with small lot in order to better understand each single place. You know, we are on the hills, so there are differences between a place to another, different exposure. I think it's an opportunity for us to learn to make a wine with a unique character because the place deserve a wine with a unique character. And we need to be good enough in order to try to take from the grapes this unique character. Again, there is still a lot to do, but I think we have a wonderful team there. Glenn Salva, who is the estate manager, knows the estate since ever because he started with the estate 35 years ago. So I feel quite, I mean, comfortable. And first of all, I think I love to go there. In a few months, we will have a new visitor center, small visitor center. You know, it'll be a fantastic place to spend a couple of hours looking to the perfection of the valley.
Oh, perfect. So taking that, how is this going to show up in the wine, which we're talking about, the mountain fruit and that elegance and that mix? So what's the intended style as we taste through this?
You know, we pay a lot of attention, maybe too much, someone says, to the quality of the tannins. So we love wines which have silky tannins. We don't want to make wine too muscular in a certain sense, too monumental. We always looking for a wine that has the grace inside the palate. And even there, of course, we are in a completely different place than Villa Antinori Red, Villa Antinori Chianti Classico. Climate is completely different. Soil is completely different. I mean, in Chianti Classico, we are in a soil which is plenty of rocks, but it's a sedimentary rock. In Napa Valley and at Antica, we have soil which is a volcanic soil, completely different. The expression of Cabernet, the expression of the grapes are completely different. More dark, more, in a certain sense, black.
You're saying that was the red wine, so this is the black wine.
This is a black wine.
Yeah.
With a lot of intensity, with a lot of, it's quite deep as a taste, but again, it maintains a sort of grace without being too muscular. I love this taste of this note. You have herbs, you have, black fruit, this touch of coming from the wood, of course, but it is all very well integrated, in my opinion. 2016, again, was a very good vintage in Napa Valley.
There were a series of good vintages, in Napa Valley.
Yes. We had some problem with 2017 because the fire, but I mean, even 17 was a very good. Of course, we remember the 17 because the fire, but the 17 as a vintage was very good. As the last couple of vintage, 18 and 19, they're both really very good. Yeah, really very good. You know, but in Napa Valley, as in most part of the New World, you have much more stability. Yeah. The Mediterranean area is a little bit more, unpredictable, let's say.
Yeah.
As we are.
Yeah. It is a beautiful wine. We've had this wine. Also, for those of you at home, if you haven't had a chance to taste the Chardonnay, that's also one of my favorites because it is in that old world, new world balance, which you love so much, which kind of takes that lovely structure and then also has, it's balanced, like you said, grace. I like that with the elegance. But yeah, this is a black wine, but it's wonderfully made. And I think all three of these wines really represent what Antinori has done with their properties around the world, is taking that tradition and expertise from Tuscany and really put it to work to bring out the quality of each region that you choose to be in. So you have part of you, but you're really trying to just showcase what is there. And I appreciate that.
All of us, Gwendolyn, we have a wonderful possibility to manage and to try to produce wine like this. Also for our technicians, is a wonderful experience because they are able to travel, to talk with people, the local people, to understand a different region, and you learn always something from everywhere. So we had these wonderful chances.
So next up, we had David in California, a couple of questions, who asked to Alessia how it feels to be next up in 26 generations, and if it's a challenging responsibility, and kind of maybe you can talk to is there anything planned for the future yet, or are you going to continue on the path you're on?
So absolutely, yes. It's obviously it's a big honor, but also an extremely big responsibility, and also a great challenge. So I think you have on your shoulders more than 600 years of involvement in the business. So it's something that it took a long time to build it, and takes very quickly you can destroy it. So for us, it's very important to maintain it in the family, to possibly, as I mentioned, maintain it for the future, many generations. And I think one of the most challenging things ethically is really transmit the values of passion, integrity, humbleness, and obviously always this obsession for quality to the next generation, to the 27th generation, because us three sisters, we all have kids, two each. And one of them is the 27th generation is on board since a few months in the company. So that is, it's a great news for the future. Yeah. They won't be obliged, because obviously, as we haven't been obliged, but they have to have the passion. And if they have the passion, they will possibly continue, and they will focus on certain aspects of the company. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, because we have to transmit what has been transmitted to us from my father to the next one. In terms of what we will be doing in new projects, you never know, because with my father, you never know, because he's always he never stops, and he always falls in love, as I mentioned in the past, to wineries with new projects. But I think the most important aspect in the next, this generation, is to focus on what we have, especially in the Chianti Classico, because we have a lot to do. We have purchased a good amount of vineyards, and in the last years, and we have to focus on a grape variety, on the Sangiovese and the different expressions of Sangiovese. And I always say that what will be, a sort of a dream one day, which I think it won't be far away, is to show to the public, to our consumers, different expressions of Sangiovese in a map, and with different wines, one close to each other, and to show them how they can also be quite different, always, with our approach and with our philosophy. But that's probably our next project, I would say, which is not a small one.
No, well, even now you have these wonderful different Chianti Classicos that I think all show this unique sense of place and character and personality. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and staying up late to talk to us and tell your stories. I think this is just a great example of the diversity of wines from Antinori, and the commitment that you have to quality and excellence, and that your whole family has for all of these wines. And you too, Renzo, because I just consider you part of the family. So that's right.
Yes,
I think everybody
yes.
else does too. But thank you for bringing this passion. You mentioned passion. I thank you for bringing this passion to so many places in the world, and kind of to help us all discover some wonderful new places. And for those of you at home, pardon?
We are very fortunate.
Yes, you're surrounded by good people and good places, and you're making great wine. And thank you to all of you at home who joined us. We appreciate you being here. I apologize if we didn't get to all of your questions. If you didn't have a chance to taste the wines, you can still find these 3 wines on Wine.com together. We encourage you to taste them, and there's a whole other world of Antinori wines you can also discover there and find them all. And so yes, thank you for joining us too. And Alessia and Renzo,
Buonanotte.
Cheers.
Cheers. Something.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Say hello to Mike.
Will do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessia. Thank you, Renzo. Ciao.
Ciao.
It's both a science and a form of high art. It's made from the combination of grapes, sunlight, rain, soil, and time. It's raised up in the moments that matter. It's wine. And we are Wine.com. We have the largest wine selection in the world, online sommeliers with free advice, and now our powerful new app puts the entire world of wine in your hands. Wine.com. Seriously passionate about wine. Download our free app today.